A beloved Looney legend has left us, but it's not all sad news as Coyote versus Acme, the film, is still being screened and could still possibly come out. So, of course, you realize this means podcast.
Are you ready, eager young space cadets?
Meep, meep.
I saw a pussy cat.
That is the limit!
Where's the kaboom? There was supposed to be an earth-shattering kaboom.
Hello, and welcome to Of Course You Realize This Means Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Graves, and with me today, it is a pleasure to bring to you screenwriter and TV writer, animation enthusiast, and just all-around comedic fun guy, Jordan Morris, who has a new graphic novel that he's working on coming out later this year. Jordan, welcome to the show, and how are you doing this morning?
Hi, I'm doing great. I actually love being introduced as all-around comedic fun guy. I am going to insist on being introduced that way for future podcasts. All around, that is such a, when you're a creative person these days, you do a lot of different stuff. You podcast, you work on TV, you work in some other stuff, and I think all-around comedic fun guy, that really gets at it. Thank you so much for this wonderful title.
You're welcome, of course. Yeah. So you are a podcaster as well,
Yes.
And you've worked with some really fun YouTube channels.
In the YouTube space, that's how I say YouTube. Yeah, I did a little freelance writing for the Screen Junkies back in the day, and you can still see me semi-regularly on Good Mythical Morning with Rhett and Link. I worked for them for a bit and established a couple recurring jokes that we're still recurring to this day.
Fantastic. I touched on it briefly. I just wanted to highlight the passing of Cass Warner, the beloved, one of the Warner sisters, if you will. She co-authored the book, The Brothers Warner, and she had developed a lot of film and TV projects with the studio and was the granddaughter of Jack Warner. And so I want to, these living legends, they're still with us. And the generations that they are attached to have such a wealth of knowledge. And if you ever get to sit down with somebody like that, I think you should definitely take the opportunity. They have a lot of insight into how the business was run back in the day. And if you haven't read The Brothers Warner, I highly recommend it. It is currently available at the WB Studio store, which is really cool. But I'm sure you can find it on Amazon and everywhere like that. Did you ever get to meet Cass Warner, by the way?
No, I didn't, and I'm thrilled to hear about this book. Actually, as someone who's such a big fan of Warner Brothers stuff, I guess I don't know too much about the history of the studio and the family. So yeah, that's great to hear that there's a book out there, and yeah, that's such a cool way to remember somebody is through, recommending and recirculating their book. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, send condolences to the entire family and friends. I know people personally who had just met her because she was doing a signing a couple of months back. And I'm sure it's just devastating to lose someone like that. But, we wish everyone the best and we hope that the healing starts and, just know that she lived a wonderful life. And yeah, what more can you ask for?
What an awesome legacy. And yeah, sounds like she lived a really long, cool life and left behind lots of awesome stuff. So that's great. I mean, yeah, obviously, we love Warner Brothers stuff. It's all over, and it probably will, it'll outlive us all. So yeah, what a cool legacy to leave behind.
So something that we hope lives on is this film, Coyote versus Acme. Have you heard about it? Do you know anything about the drama that's going on around it?
I do. I've been following it. I had a literal dream about it last night.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, do tell.
Yeah, and maybe because I knew we had this recording coming up and it was on my mind, but in my dream, I was scrolling through my Twitter feed and saw that in my dream, this is not actually happening, by the way, before people start buying plane tickets.
Disclaimer.
This is my dream. I cannot predict the future. I don't know. I saw that there's a theater out here called the New Beverly that does classic movie screenings and stuff like that. And in my dream, The New Beverly was showing Coyote versus Acme as part of a viral thing
Oh,
to
wow.
actually get it released. So yeah, I have hope. I'm so excited to hopefully see this movie someday. That's so cool that like I didn't know until she started stumping for it that Samy Burch was the screenwriter. I loved May
Yes.
December. I thought May December was a hoot. So yeah, I would be so excited to see this movie. I mean, who wouldn't? If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably so stoked on it. So yeah, consider me amongst the people who are really stoked to see it. And yeah, hopefully it happens. I guess it's reassuring that we're still talking about it, X amount of months later, because yeah, it's been a story for so long. So hopefully the fact that it is an ongoing story and people still care means that it'll come out at some point. I've talked to a couple of people who have seen it, and they all kind of corroborate what you hear, and that it's like funny and surprisingly emotional, and all the performances are awesome, and all those great Looney Tunes characters show up. So yeah, I can't wait. If the new Beverly actually starts showing it, I'll be out there with a deck chair, waiting for my ticket.
I hope that dream is prophetic, because Quentin Tarantino is a huge Looney Tunes fan. So if anyone was going to screen it like that, it would be him.
Yeah, he's the owner of the New Beverly and a couple other old movie theaters here in LA. So yes, Quentin, you can do it. We believe in you.
Yeah, just give them the $35 million, however much they're asking for, and screen it at your theater.
You got it. Quentin's got it.
If this finally ever does come out, I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised, and it will also rejuvenate the franchise in a new way. And I think that would be really exciting, especially for us fans listening and promoting Release Coyote versus Acme every which way we can. But a new quote has come out, and she was talking about May December again. And she said, as far as I know, it's ongoing. I think we're all pretty heartbroken about it. We hope it will somehow find its home and not end up stuck in a vault for the rest of time. That would be a great resolution. They are still screening it. They are still pushing for it to be released, which is fantastic news. That brings us to the last news article, which is Tiny Toons Looniversity is back. Season 2 dropped last, I guess, two Fridays ago, and it is better than season 1. A lot of people are saying that they love the writing in this second batch of episodes. It's only 5 currently, and they are set to premiere on Cartoon Network on April 6th at 9 a.m., so set your alarms. But currently, you can watch them streaming on Max. So I know you're a fan of Tiny Toons growing up. Did you have a ball just jumping into this world? And what was it like writing for Buster and Babs?
Oh my God. Dream come true, like literal childhood dream come true. I loved the Tiny Toons growing up. I have a special affection for the like movie that they did. I don't think it was released in theaters. The How I Spent My Summer Vacation.
It's so good.
It's so funny. I think we had it on VHS and we just watched it into the ground, my sister and I. I can still, I still sing the Happy World Land music. Part of the plot is Bucky going with Hampton's family to Happy World Land, which is like a really like terrible amusement park. Happy World Land, where the fun doesn't stop for only $80 a pop. Great joke. Yeah, I was such a fan of Tiny Toons growing up. Oh, great NES game for Tiny Toons. Did you ever play the NES game? A little platformer. So fun.
There were so many little Tiny Toons platformers that were incredible.
Oh, yeah?
Buster Breaks Loose. And yeah, I mean, the list goes on. I think there's like 5 good ones, but all by Namco, or like the same company did them all. And it's just like, where's this? Like,
I know, yeah.
Bring that back.
That'll just
bring back good games like that.
Oh gosh, I know. I would love to see a little re-release of those. But yeah, no, I mean that just assures that a kid is going to become obsessed with something when there's like a TV show and also a video game. That like just ensures that you're like, oh, I'm obsessed with this for life. This is imprinting on me. So yeah, when I heard it was getting rebooted, I was just like so stoked as a fan. And then something I was super stoked about is I heard that some old like comedy colleagues were going to be involved in it. Erin Gibson, who I did Upright Citizens Brigade improv and sketch with when I first moved to LA. She's the I don't know, maybe don't know exactly what her title is. I'm going to say showrunner.
Yeah, she's the co-showrunner with Nate Cash.
Nice.
Nate Cash.
And obviously, I think Erin is so funny. She's so amazing. She's got a great podcast.
Yes.
She's always been one of my favorite funny people. And I'm like, oh, great call, Warner Brothers. That's like exactly the kind of person you need to kind of refresh Tiny Toons. And then I think a little bit later in the writing process, she brought on my good friend and another UCB collaborator from back in the day, Allison Becker, who I think is so funny, a great writer, but also one of that actor from That Thing, does a lot of commercials. She was like a recurring local weirdo in Parks and Rec. She was like the local newspaper reporter.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
she is like a really, really funny actor and also a great writer. 2 talents. Can you imagine having 2 talents? I can't. But yeah, so
Yeah, such a great cast.
oh, the voice cast. I know.
And it's just got so much energy, so much liveliness. And I'm assuming modern comedy writing is a lot
Yeah.
different than what it was back in the day. And so can you talk about writing on a show that is very in your face with its punches?
Yeah. I mean, I think that like Warner Brothers stuff and like definitely Tiny Toons and Animaniacs like did such a great job of incorporating like current pop culture to the point where like if you go back and watch them now, sometimes there's an element of like, wait, who was that? Was that character that walked through supposed to be Eric Roberts? You know,
Yeah.
and obviously animation takes a couple of years to get from script to screen. So, you know, even then some of the references are like, yeah, you can't be so up to date. Like, I guess South Park they can make in a long weekend, but
Right.
you know, yeah, so but I think they tried to be as current as they possibly could. Yeah, and I think with Tiny Toons, and I'll like maybe clarify my role in it a little bit. I wrote a couple freelance episodes for them. I wasn't there in the writing room. I wasn't there in the like pitch or anything like that. But I mean, I talked to them a little bit about what they kind of wanted to achieve with the show. And I think they did want it to, you know, walk that line of being like for adult fans our age, but also like something kids could watch. Because I think sometimes the reboots and the refreshes, they swing one way a little harder than they swing the other way. So I think that like, you know, they wanted it to be, you know, a like respectful return to the show that people our age love, but also like, you know, you want to get a new generation of kids into this. So I
Of
think,
course.
yeah. So I think they did want to make it. They did want to make them seem like modern teen/young adults. So I think that they do like use some modern slang and they do like act a little bit more like they're from 2024. Because I think you could do like a 90s throwback version of Tiny Toons and it would probably be really hilarious. But you know, you might lose some. You know, you might lose some new viewers that way.
Sure.
Although maybe not. I don't know. Who doesn't love the 90s, right? Like, who doesn't love to remember the 90s?
Yeah, everything's got to be updated though, and the way that they use the characters and they have these cutaways to their faces and they're doing the memes. Like what I'm thinking about specifically is like Plucky having really beady eyes and like a really big expression
Yeah.
on his beak and like that kind of thing. I think that goes far for kids, and obviously the internet culture that we're in, people are just going to take screen grabs of that and then plug in whatever they're
Of
you know
course.
thinking over that kind of overlay.
And I do love how expressive they are. In
Yes.
it. It's such a cartoony cartoon, and I think cartoony cartoons are definitely like fewer and far between these days. And like Looney Tunes still work great for memes, like Big Chungus, you know, like
Yes.
you could turn on your favorite social media right now and find 10 funny Big Chungus memes because like they're so expressive, and that's why SpongeBob makes such a great meme. Is like,
Yeah.
it's just like, yes, pure emotion. You know what he's feeling at all times. You know, me after too much coffee, right? Like,
Yes.
these things work so well for it, just because like the cartooning is so brilliant, and I really like that is an aspect of this show. I like that like even though it is modern and you know you still have some like modern slang and modern ideas, like it's classic cartoon. It's a classic Warner Brothers cartoon, and like the characters still kind of like move and behave and emote like those old cartoons. I think that's just such a great part of the show.
Yeah, and most recently they incorporated the celebrity parodies with with Plucky being obsessed with the tabloids magazine and going through and looking at the different mashups of celebrities and animals, which I thought was really funny and a really great callback to the 90s series. For those who are uninitiated and don't know who Big Chungus is, that is Bugs Bunny imitating Elmer Fudd from Wabbit Trouble all the way back from 1940. So that is a really fun callback, but that has taken on a meme of its own, if you will, and he's everywhere. But speaking of cartoony cartoons, you have worked on a slew of them. You have Teen Titans Go, Unikitty, most recently Jellystone, which just dropped its 3rd season. So these characters have been in your repertoire so far as vehicles for comedy. Which characters do you associate with the most or are easiest to write?
Oh, sure. Great question. Yeah, so the episode of Tiny Toons, one of the episodes that I did, is that episode you mentioned where Plucky is looking at all the tabloids. We also get Marvin the Martian in that one.
I love Marvin in that. Yes.
Yeah. It's kind of an old man Logan type story where Marvin is old and broken, and then spoiler alert, gets his groove back and goes on a space adventure.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
it's honestly so good.
Oh, thanks. I really love how it turned out. It was so fun to do. And yeah, and those celebrity parodies you mentioned, those were so fun to come up with. Allison Becker and I jammed on those together, and I think some of them were Aaron Gibson's too. So yeah, I cannot take credit for Fox J. Michael. I think that's one of the funniest ones in there, and I think that was an Allison Becker. But yeah, those animal celebrities were a blast to come up with. I think we probably have 50 unused ones that didn't make it into the episode. So
fantastic.
Hopefully if there's more Tiny Toons at some point, we see some of those animal celebrities.
Can you give the listeners just a peek at one of them that may have left it on the cutting room floor?
Let me see if I could remember. I don't know if I have it in front of me. If at some point I find it, I'll email it over to you and you can read them on air.
Perfect.
Yeah, but I mean, I like Plucky is so funny. I think that the modern the Looniversity version of Plucky is a hilarious update of him. I like that he's just a preening high status jerk. Basically, I love a high status jerk. I love a Danny McBride character. Even though he is a high status jerk and hard to get along with, he and Buster and Hampton are still friends. That friendship is still there. And even though he's annoying and even though they get on each other's nerves, they are friends at the end of the episode. And I think that's such a nice part of the show is the characters can have conflict, but they're friends. And I think that's something I always like to try and do with my casts of characters is to make it so they can have conflict and they can fight and they can be funny at each other, but you do want them to be friends at the end of the day, and you do want people to understand why they're a unit, not just that they got smushed together somehow, but they do have a connection that's fun to see. So yeah, I appreciate that they really wanted to do that with Looniversity, is to make sure that the friendship stayed believable.
1000%. And it is believable. And I love whenever they have scenes together, but I got to give it up for friend of the podcast, David Arago Jr., who brings life to both Plucky and Hampton in this. Yeah. And just that dual role of being so sweet and innocent with Hampton and then just being the out and out jerk with Plucky. I don't know how he does it, but he does it so well. And it comes off in the writing. It comes off in the characterization. And it's so funny to watch. Anytime Plucky is the butt of the joke, it always gets me.
Yeah. And I think it might even be the first episode of Looniversity. They're doing some sort of talent show, and you cut to Plucky, and he's wearing the Natalie Portman outfit from Black Swan.
Yes.
I have not laughed that hard at a car. I had nothing to do with that. I was just enjoying that episode as a fan. And yeah, that to me is such a hilarious joke and such a great example of how this modern Plucky is a little bit different.
And transitioning over to Jellystone, I'm sure you're a fan of those characters as well. And Top Cat has really surprised me with the antics that come around for his family and, all of the cats associated with that franchise and all of the little groupings. You have Yogi Bear, and now we have the Jetsons coming in. We had a cameo of Scooby-Doo in the gang. Do you have you worked with your goal of working with a IP yet, or is there another IP that's out there that you haven't touched on yet? And what IP brought you the most joy to work on within Jellystone?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I'll talk about Jellystone a little bit. And yeah, and I think you hit on something that I think is a core part of the show, in that like it's a lot of little shows. Like I think
Yes.
that's how the creator C.H. Greenblatt, when I got the job, that's kind of how he described it to me. It's like it's
Okay.
all these little sitcoms that kind of happen within this bigger show. In this little town of Jellystone has all of these little sitcoms that happen in it, and it's like Megilla and Jabber working at the hat store, like that's
Yeah.
its own little show. And Yogi and Boo Boo and Cindy at the hospital, that's its own little show. And of course these characters kind of like mix up and mash up, but you kind of like start an episode with like, which of these little worlds are you starting in? And Top Cat and his gang, being these kind of shifty scammers, is its own little show. And yeah, I love their take on all these Hanna-Barbera characters. Tom Lennon is Top Cat. How funny is he? He's such a great VO performer, and
He's fantastic.
such a fun use of him. And yeah, so that was a blast. And like the Hanna-Barbera characters, like, have these great designs, and all those shows had great theme songs, but I think that's mostly what people remember about them, right? It's kind of like their vibes. Like, I mean, I diehards probably do, but like just regular cartoon fans probably don't have a favorite Grape Ape episode. Like it's something you remember fondly, but I don't think it's been as rerun and re-obsessed over as the Looney Tunes. So yeah, it's a little more of a blank slate, and you can kind of just have fun with it. Like you want to like recapture kind of what was fun about the character in general, but like it's a little more loosey goose. And like Jellystone is a crazy show. Like if you haven't watched it yet, like I think they're not super concerned about like plot or it making total sense. I think they just want it to be funny, and I love working on a show like that. Like, I think with Looniversity they do want those episodes to have like emotional arcs and like maybe not lessons, but like you want the character to kind of grow and change. And Jellystone is just chaos, and I think that like it was really fun because I worked on both those in the same year. It was really fun to do both, like something that was a little more like that had a little more character plot growth, and then just like Jellystone, it's like, what insane idea can you come up with? What will be funny? What's making us laugh in the room? So yeah, I like that both those shows exist.
I loved how you described it as chaos, because like that show it's like playful chaos is how I would describe it. But yeah, and totally like it's irreverent and it doesn't really care about plot, but it's just got good vibes.
Yeah, the Jellystone vibes are impeccable. And I love how both these shows turned out. And I think that like it's great that both of them can like exist, on the same network.
And I wanted to give a shout out to friend of the podcast, Jenny Lorenzo, who voices a couple of characters on the show: Choo Choo, Bobby Louie, Spooky, Hardy Har Har, and Pixie.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Look out for her.
She's hilarious. Such a great voice cast on that show.
Yes.
I will say something that I tried to do in this season of Jellystone that we never were able to crack, that I absolutely will take a crack at again if they do another season and I work on it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, that would be great. I know. Yeah, check out Jellystone. We would love to do more. I wanted to do an episode where Jabberjaw gets back together with her band.
Oh yes.
The original Jabberjaw cartoon is very weird. It is a talking shark who lives in a bubble city with human teenagers. He talks like Curly from the Three Stooges, and they have a rock band. It's just the most random collection of things. But I really have I have a lot of love for it. And as a 90s ska kid, I was kind of obsessed with the Cartoon Network short that did a little ska song about Jabberjaw. Maybe not like technically a ska song, it's probably like more like a punk song with horns in it. So don't get at me in my mentions, ska people. I know the difference. But so I like that. So Jabberjaw kind of continued to live in my head because of those little shorts. So, and in Jellystone, they like vaguely allude to her band in an episode that I didn't work on. Like she remembers them as ghosts or something like that. And so I would come in to the writer's room basically every other day with a new pitch for how Jabberjaw gets back together with her band. And they didn't, and Carl didn't like any of them.
Oh no.
He's a great dude to work with and very nice and very open to collaboration. But for whatever reason, I could not get them to hook into one of these ideas where Jabber gets to get back together with her band. And, I love like rock and roll movies and, I was like a punk kid. So I would love to like, bring some of that energy into it. But yeah, we were never able to crack it. I think they're open to it. I think we could do a Jabber and her band episode in a future season, should that happen.
Fingers crossed that everybody flocks to that show and gives it some attention, because I agree. It takes a minute to like marinate in it, but definitely it's worth it. And you'll come out a more alive and overjoyed person with your daily life.
It's so funny. I dare anybody not to laugh watching Jellystone. It's such a treat. And they're 12-minute episodes. You can throw on a couple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so Jellystone is already out on Max and soon will be on Cartoon Network if it's not already. And Tiny Toons Looniversity Season 2 is dropping at 9 a.m. on April 6th. So again, set your clocks for that. And I'm going to take it over to a new topic here. We're going to be discussing your new graphic novel, Youth Group. And This is a really fun adventure, mystical, kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but at church.
That's honestly a great pitch. That's a great way to describe it. Yes, thank you.
I found the humor to be, relatable, honestly, between, daughter and mom dynamics. You got friend dynamics, and they're going through certain things, and it's just evolving until you get to a spiritual exorcism that has to take place. So can you talk a bit about writing for a graphic novel as opposed to writing for an animated series? And like, what's the difference between that?
Yeah, so a Youth Group I did with a great artist named Bowen McGurdy, who's work, from the series Spectre Inspectors, if you're a YA comics fan, and they've done some Marvel as well. And yeah, so like comics are pretty collaborative, right? So you're working with the artist, and I think that like in certain schools of thought, the writer should be kind of like second banana to the artist, right? Like as the writer, you're there to kind of set them up for their, to succeed in the ways that, you're kind of there to set them up to be the best they can be. And I really like that school of thought. I really like, kind of, what can I write that will support them? What can I write that like lets them show off? What can I write that like is not too much of a pain in the ass, like crowd scenes? Can I write something without a bunch of crowd scenes? And of course you have like an editor. We had a great editor on Youth Group, Ben Wilgus, who is a great comics writer himself. And so like that's kind of your team. And like, and you want to collaborate, but like compared to an animation show, that is a very small team. Like for an animated show, like there's so many people working on it. And I think, like when you're doing comics, you want to give that artist, space to shine, and you want to help them to, turn out the best product they can. But with animation, there's like a dozen other people that you want to do that for. So like your story editor, for instance, like on Looniversity, it was Allison Becker. It's like, how can I help her bring this idea to light? And like, and she's kind of like supporting Aaron, and there's the directors and the storyboard artists. So it's kind of like, and with animated shows, you're not always in the same room together. Like it's pretty piecemeal, right? Like I've done some shows where like the writers get together with the board artists and the board artists get together with the directors, but those are kind of fewer and farther between these days. So yeah, I think they're both group efforts, but like graphic novels, your group is much, much smaller. So fewer ideas, fewer cooks. It can kind of be a little more like of a vision, but with like animated shows, like there's just more cooks and more ideas, and like oftentimes that creates, but also just you have to know that there's like a lot of people who want to have a say. So yeah, I think that's the big difference. So
That's a good
yeah,
description. Yeah. I would also think that a animated series is like a train, and like it's pulling people on and people are getting off, but it's still going. It's like full speed ahead, and for your own project, you're kind of out there in the back pushing,
Yeah.
trying to get the train to make its destination. Yeah. So we've already pitched the book, but do you want to tell the listeners what the crux of the book is about? And like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Buffy the Vampire Slayer at church is a great pitch. I don't feel like I need to say much else about it, but I will. It is a YA horror comedy. It's about teenage exorcists. So it is about a kid whose parents force her to go to a goofy youth group, and she finds out that these goofballs who, sing parody songs and talk about abstinence have to do actual exorcisms. So you have this skeptic, this non-believer who has to kind of team up with these hyper believers to fight monsters and demons. So yeah, like obviously Buffy was a big inspiration. Shaun of the Dead was a big inspiration, like how you do a horror thing that is kind of has a lot of character-based jokes, but also like a real horror plot in it. Yeah,
and when the main character finds the friend tied up in the garage, I immediately thought of Shaun of the Dead, by the way.
Yeah.
So that was a 1-to-1 it came across.
Oh, good. Yes, I know. I love that movie. So yeah, any comparison to Shaun of the Dead, I think is flattering. Yeah, and I had a ton of fun doing it. Bowen is like such a great artist. We were talking about like how far an expressive character goes, but Bowen's characters have such beautiful acting. Like the jokes in it land well because those characters are like acting the emotion. And I think that like I can't wait for people to see these characters. They're so fun and real, and yeah, really like comedy's a little tougher in graphic novels. I think you don't see a ton of like funny comics. Like
right.
It's rare. And I think that it's just a little bit tough because you don't have timing, and like yeah, there's just some challenges with it. But I think like Bowen is such a great artist, and like those characters just are so expressive. And I think that, yeah, hopefully the like comedy lands because of that. And yeah, it is available for pre-order now. We love a pre-order.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like a youth group kid growing up. I know I've mentioned that I've been a couple of kind of kids, but aren't we all? We're all a lot of different kinds of kids. Yeah, so I was a youth group kid, and always like thought it was a very funny world, this world of like, we're religious, but we're also kind of cool, right? Like we also like we go to band concerts, and we hang out and watch movies. Like, so I loved that attitude. I think it's such a funny, weird attitude, and it's never a world that I saw like expressed in media that well. Like I never saw, teen church or youth group like represented well in media. So I don't know. I had always kind of wanted to tell a story in that world, and the idea of making them exorcisms just kind of came, and that's kind of where the germ of the idea was born.
Well, it's a fun idea, and I think it's executed really well. You have, again, as you said, expressive faces and really fun, lively drawings with these characters, and the way that the story progresses is just really energetic, and it leaves you on the edge of your seat as you're flipping the page. And like, I can't wait for people to read this as well. Again, and that is available for pre-order currently and comes out July 16th in stores and digitally in the young adult fiction section. So look out for it there. It's called Youth Group. What a great title.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And the cover's gorgeous too. If you want to take a look at it, bit.ly/youth group book is a little link, and you got all those pre-order links, and you can see the gorgeous cover, a couple of the pages. Yeah, no, I'm excited for folks to check it out. And again, we love a pre-order. Do I know why? Not exactly, but we do. So if it sounds like a cool idea, we love a pre-order.
Fantastic. So Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you online?
Yes, I'm out there at Jordan David Morris on Instagram, and I'll just shout out that book link one more time, bit.ly/youth group book. You got all your info there. I'm excited to check it out, and thank you so much for having me. God, what a fun chat.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. And you can follow the podcast over at This Means Pod on Twitter and This Means Podcast over on Facebook and Instagram, where I am posting daily anything that has to do with Looney Tunes or any updates within Warner Animation. You will find it there. Bill Hader was currently cast as Cat in the Hat in a new animated movie. So, like, that's going to be wild. But yeah, follow us on social media to stay up to date on all things in the Looniverse. And as always, that's not all, folks.